Well, it's being said that rioting broke out in Louisville over the grand jury's decision in the Breonna Taylor case, but that's wrong on two levels. For one, the chaos in Louisville, as in so many other cities across the country, is funded and organized. Moments after the grand jury returned only 3 counts of wanton endangerment against one officer for firing shots that went into a neighbor's apartment, but no charges for Taylor's death, U-Hauls packed with pre-made signs and riot shields were already on the scene being unloaded. Now, it's clear that there's orchestration and planning involved. Also, these are not mere riots. These are violent uprisings with the clear and often stated goal of destabilizing the government and burning down the system. In other words, it's insurrection. So rather than riots breaking out, this was another campaign of insurrection being carried out. And the distinction is important. It's also important, though not relevant to the insurrectionists, that the narrative surrounding the Breonna Taylor case, advanced by BLM and Antifa and their allies in the media, has proven to be almost entirely false. The narrative in these high-profile police shootings is always false, of course. The only question is one of degree. Just how wrong will it turn out to be? In nearly all of those high-profile cases over the past few months especially, that answer has generally varied between extremely and incredibly. For example, the narrative around the Jacob Blake shooting in Kenosha claimed that he was unarmed and shot by cops while trying to get into his car after stopping to break up a fight. In reality, he was harassing his alleged rape victim, was armed with a knife, was reaching into his ex-girlfriend's car, which he was allegedly trying to steal, when the officer fired. In the shooting of Dion K in D.C., we were at first told that K was an unarmed child shot in the back. As it turns out, he was an adult, a known gang member, and was shot in the chest while running towards officers with his gun drawn. The case of Ricardo Munoz in Lancaster, activists told us that he was a mentally disabled person, randomly gunned down outside his mother's house. Some even said, there were some BLM people online saying he was an autistic child murdered by the cops. In reality, Munoz was 27 years old, was shot because he chased after a police officer while wielding a large knife. BLM has gotten almost every fact of every case wrong. Going all the way back to Michael Brown in 2014, who was claimed to have been murdered with his hands up while begging for his life. Forensic evidence, eyewitness reports eventually confirmed that he was actually shot while assaulting a police officer and trying to steal his weapon. And this after he had assaulted a store clerk and committed a robbery. So what about Breonna Taylor? Now, initially it was reported that police burst into the wrong apartment without knocking during a botched drug raid and murdered Taylor while she was asleep. That would be indefensible if it was true, but once again, it wasn't. As Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron explained in his press conference on Wednesday, officers were serving a legal warrant at the right location, and they did knock before entering. An independent witness corroborates that they announced and identified themselves. Upon entering the residence, Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, opened fire on officers. When police returned fire, Breonna Taylor was hit and killed. Here's Cameron at the press conference explaining some of this.
Evidence shows that officers both knocked and announced their presence at the apartment. The officers' statements about their announcement are corroborated by an independent witness who was near in proximity to apartment 4. In other words, the warrant was not served as a no-knock warrant. When officers were unable to get anyone to answer or open the door to apartment 4, the decision was made to breach the door. After breaching the door, Sergeant Mattingly was the first and only officer to enter the residence. Sergeant Mattingly identified 2 individuals standing beside one another at the end of the hall, a male and a female. In his statement, he says that the male was holding a gun, arms extended in a shooting stance. Sergeant Mattingly saw the man's gun fire, heard a boom, and immediately knew he was shot as a result of feeling heat in his upper thigh. Kenneth Walker fired the shot that hit Sergeant Mattingly, and there is no evidence to support that Sergeant Mattingly was hit by friendly fire from other officers.
Now, we should mention a warrant was issued for Taylor's apartment because there was reason to suspect that Taylor, or at least her apartment, was in some way involved in her criminal ex-boyfriend's drug enterprise. As court documents show, Taylor's car was spotted multiple times outside of a known drug house that was under surveillance by law enforcement. Taylor is on tape, reportedly, referring to the drug house while speaking to her then boyfriend while he was in jail. In 2016, the body of a murder victim was allegedly found in a car rented by Taylor, which she said she had lent to her boyfriend. Shortly after her death, the ex-boyfriend was again recorded in jailhouse phone conversations claiming that Taylor was, quote, handling his money. The point is that the warrant was issued for entirely valid reasons. The cops executed it according to the law, following all the proper protocols. Only opened fire after Walker had begun shooting at them. There is no basis for calling this a murder, much less a racist murder by agents of white supremacy. It's a tragic accident, a catastrophic confluence of events. Many other terms could be used to describe it, but the fact remains that officers were serving a lawful warrant, acting within the bounds of the law, and responding with lethal force to the lethal force being used against them. As usual, those accusing the officers of criminal conduct have not bothered to explain what they might have done differently. Should they have not obtained the warrant for the apartment in the first place, despite having credible reason to believe that it had ties to drug trafficking? Should they not have executed the warrant? Should they not have, or should they have waited outside for someone to come to the door, and if the residents refused to answer, then just pack up and go home? Or should they have not returned fire once they were fired upon? Instead, diving to the floor or hiding behind furniture, hoping the assailant stops before a bullet hits one of them in the face. Now, BLM militants, if they were being honest, would actually answer yes to all of those questions. They've made it clear that their problem with the police is that the police exist. Anything the police do, therefore, is wrong, for the simple fact the police are the ones doing it. For BLM and its allies, the fight against police brutality is a fight against policing itself. All law enforcement is brutality in their minds. And anybody who dies at the hands of police, any black person anyway, has been murdered, no matter what, regardless of context. This is the radicalism that holds our cities hostage, the madness to which we are all supposed to bow. It dresses itself in the garb of racial justice. It carries signs that say things like equality. But this is all a decidedly unconvincing disguise for their radical assault on law and order and civilization itself. And that's what's happening. And now it's happening in Louisville. Hope you enjoyed this segment of the Matt Walsh Show, because you should know.
So, I've had several arguments with some people. I want to break it down for you, and I want to try to bust them out for this. So, I will not show the name of the person, but I will show their Instagram name. Please do not go attacking these people. So, I'm going to go into my messages, and no, wait, it's in my post. So there was a post by on Brandon Tatum. His Instagram name is Officer Tatum, because he was a ex-police officer until he decided to quit. So he shared like some stuff about this, and the truth about, because like mentioned, she wasn't EMT. She was terminated in 2017. So she was helping her ex-boyfriend in criminal drug dealing, and which is she was an accomplice, as I mentioned, and that is technically you are also labeled as a criminal as well if you are helping someone who is doing crime. She was in a jailhouse recording on running drugs for her ex-boyfriend. That was evidence. Under surveillance for a month. Running drugs. That was true. It was on a warrant. She was on a search warrant several times. And he did. There was a knock. And then announced it, despite a no-knock exception. There was not. It wasn't a no-knock. It was like. So they knocked at the door, and they made sure like, if someone came to the door and they could talk to that person, like, you know, friendly talk. And Breonna's boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, fired at the officers and hitting an officer. So if you shoot at an officer, then yeah. Then how are they going to defend themselves, right? So Breonna Taylor was not was asleep in bed. She was alongside with them because she was helping him do illegal activity. However, this person, I had to fight with a certain person I know. Please do not attack her for this. So she said, first off, laughing my ass off. The official post was flagged for false information. So I said, what the media won't do. And then, like, yeah, because the media is always hiding up, like, false information, and they will always praise Black Lives Matter as the good people, and they'll hide the real news, and anyone who supports the real news, they will insult them, and said, like people like me, may label people who are, like, speaking the truth, they will make us look like the bad people. So, what? And I said, hide the truth, trying to explain it, and then, is there anything to prove them? And this is what happens all the time, is like the person you were arguing with, they're supporting a movement that's a group that is like a leftist movement, and that would just want, like, Trump to get kicked out of office and shit and stuff, you know. And then they always ask the same thing. They prove your information and stuff. And then where'd you find it? So the same thing happened with me and the fight between me and Nick. Yeah. So I explained basically the same things right here. Brandon Tatum explained it. Anthony Brian Logan explained it. Ben Shapiro explained it. Matt Walsh, he just explained it. And I clearly said it's on several YouTube channels and sites, and she still went looking, and so I said Brandon Tatum's site, and then yeah. And she went like, oh, there's a difference between the fact and opinion. Well, what he said was the true, and what Black Lives Matter is saying is an opinion. They're releasing false news for people to get sucked into it. And I had to also fight back, saying I don't get my news off CNN. Because, yeah, CNN, we've seen people lie about it, and, if you haven't, seen that footage of Don Lemon, CNN reporter, and Terry Crews, boxer, actor, And yet she keeps going rambling on the same thing that she said last time, and she's basically saying the same thing that the other people said to me. Heather said that to me. Nick said that to me. Brooklyn said that to me. Tell me something that's fucking different. Ugh. Yeah. So, yeah. I've just had it with some three people right now with always like using the same excuses all the time, and I just trying to explain every single piece of evidence that I can find, that others have told me. Ben Shapiro has talked about it. Anthony Brian Logan has talked about it. Brandon Tatum has talked about it. Candace Owens has talked about it. And then there's like people like who are like rather like just label these people as like a liar than Karen than Ken's, and every kind of insult they can trying to find is trying to degrade these people, and it just infuriates me. So I am going to go on dictionary.com, which is a trusted website I trust, and I will search up the word criminal. Let's see what. So I'm going to explain. So it's an adjective. So as an adjective, it's of the nature of or involving crime, guilty of crime, law of relating to crime or its punishment, senseless, foolish, it's criminal to waste such and criminal proceeding, and exorbitant, grossly overpriced. Noun, a person guilty or convicted of a crime. So let's see what criminal. So if you look, who is called the criminal? Misdemeanor or felony is an act done by the person who is against the law of the country or religion. A person who does it is called the criminal. Things like killing another person, injuring another person, or stealing another person is crimes in most country. And yeah. So what website that I've been looking up on? So some crime examples of crime involve assault and battery, arson, child abuse, domestic abuse, kidnapping, rape and statutory rape, property crimes, which are like the property of another person, and inchoate crimes. Okay, they're like initiated but not completed, and though they were caught. Statutory crimes, which is like driving under the influence of drugs, open container violations, possession of alcohol, public intoxication, and underage voting under like drunk, and selling, supplying alcohol to minors. I've seen this happen. Refusing to perform a field sobriety test. So it's that's when someone is refusing, when like a police officer or like it's like medic, or is like they're like trying to like perform test where you are sober or how much alcohol you have so you have like points, and so if you have a driver's license, so this can also take away your driver's license or prevent you from driving for a certain length of time. Refusing to perform a breathalyzer or provide a blood sample. Okay, so they can also like test it whether you're like high or stuff, like medical on marijuana or like field drug, like gateway drugs, like, you know, the one George Floyd was on. So I provided in the video. So it was a meth is the short term of meth, and that was a medical one, and fentanyl is a gateway drug. So yeah, there was that one, and financial and other crimes. So like fraud, or for we're trying to like do it for financial gain and tax evasion, money laundering, blackmail, tax evasion, and cybercrime. Like people will like pretend to like act like they're from Amazon company, major companies like Amazon or eBay, and like they're trying to rip people off. That so forgery, blackmail, bribery, extortion, bank fraud, check fraud, insurance fraud, tax fraud, welfare. And also, if you were like trying to resist arrest, that is also considered a crime. And yeah. So that is why like, Breonna Taylor got in trouble with the law, and her ex-boyfriend is still and yeah, did the quote by from Mr. Miyagi and Karate Kid 2 movie. Yeah, worst punishment, men with no forgiveness. Worst punishment than death is living. So if if you committed a crime and you have no forgiveness in your heart, well, no, guess what? The crime you committed, yeah. If you're not like the person who said, yes, I did this, I'll do my time, and I'll never do it again. If you're not a person who does acts like that, then I'd rather see you rot in jail.